What if I told you that you just landed a job with 4 weeks of paid vacation, 12 weeks of paid maternity leave, or 6 weeks of partially paid paternity leave, and healthcare that you barely pay into, if at all? Then congratulations, you work at a Dutch McDonald's. The minimum wage in American politics has been in the hot seat as of recently. It has been over 10 years since we've raised the minimum wage, and people are starting to notice. Many Americans have to hold down multiple jobs just to make ends meet, and even then, sometimes it isn't enough. Some people have bought into this way of life, thinking life just pointed them down the wrong direction, or they screwed up somewhere in their earlier life. Of course, this isn't...
Hello, sir. You like freedom, good man?
Yeah, who are you?
Well, I'm your typical freedom-supporting, flag-waving, football-loving American.
Okay, well, have a seat. I think I can use some differing opinions here.
Oh, well, I'd love to.
Before we get started, I think it'd be nice to clear up a few things. Like, what is the minimum wage?
Ooh, is it when I get money in Monopoly?
The minimum wage was introduced in 1938 under President Theodore Roosevelt. It is the lowest amount of money that employers are allowed to give their employees, i.e., minimum wage. This, of course, creates a bit of tension between employee and employer, as being given the lowest amount of money possible by your employer doesn't really show that they put you in a great value area. This is why typical minimum wage jobs tend to be retail, janitorial, or fast food work. These jobs would be most affected by an increase in the minimum wage, as a majority of them are low-skilled, trivial manual work.
Well, why should we increase minimum wage if it's only going to affect entry-level jobs?
Seeing jobs like retail and fast food as entry-level is something that has prohibited growth in minimum wage for a while now. They are workers, just like anyone else, and saying we should keep the minimum wage down because it's just a job that they're going to have for a while before they go invest in their real career is just outdated. The median age for a typical retail worker is in their late 30s. It doesn't help that the United States ranks low in employee benefits either. If you haven't found it yet, the United States is right there, in dead last. If people feel fulfilled by their current standing temporary job, why should they have to suffer under the weight of not being able to pay off rent, car insurance, gas, taxes? What about those who can't get more meaningful jobs, like those with a disability or any other factor that makes them unable to work? If people are able to live comfortably in whatever field they want, whether it be low-skilled or high-skilled, wouldn't that drive the people who genuinely have a passion for their craft to pursue it further? Not only that, wouldn't they be the most competent people to do the job? If only a few set jobs pay very well, you're going to get a mix of people who A, hate the job but love the pay, and B, people who love the job and don't mind as much for the pay as much as they love their profession. Raising the minimum wage creates a more competent, less profit-driven workforce. It's no wonder that the United States rates as low as it does for job satisfaction.
Okay. Well, what about the effect on small business? Some won't be able to handle the increase or compete with larger businesses that can.
That's a good point. Small businesses that can't afford to pay more will struggle to make a profit.
Yeah, and people would lose their jobs too.
Hold on, we'll get to that. This is oddly enough the excuse that million-dollar companies make against raising the minimum wage, is that suddenly they care about the small businesses that they easily outcompete with no mercy. It's fairly easy to see why they want the minimum wage to be as low as it is, if not lower. As for small businesses needing to pay their workers an increased wage, another question arises. Should you even be in business? If you, as a business owner, were unable to pay your employees enough money to pay rent, have food, and have heating, then you should not be in business. If people want a good economy, then we shouldn't have to preserve obsolete, inefficient, and ineffective businesses and then put the brunt of that economic weight on our workforce. This point also ignores the absolute number one factor in driving an economy: spending. More people with more money are going to use it. People are going to buy better food, a new house or apartment, a new car, pay off debts. As for people losing their jobs, it's really up in the air. Some studies show that unemployment rises, some say that it diminishes, and some say it stays exactly the same. Such as a study from the TCNYC, which studied the effects of raising the minimum wage on local restaurants.
This report does not suggest that New York City's sharp minimum wage increase caused restaurant employment to soar. The more rapid restaurant employment gains are likely due to the city's faster private job growth. But the research presented here clearly shows that the wage floor rise did not diminish various indicators of restaurant performance, including job growth.
Even though a rise in minimum wage didn't increase job growth, it did prove that a sudden increase in minimum wage didn't create job loss. I'll note that you should probably pay attention to who funds these studies. I mentioned earlier that corporations gave their 2 cents about the whole situation, such as PragerU, or Prager University, a conservative YouTube channel, not a legitimate university, that uploads videos discussing hot topics and political issues, usually with a conservative spin on it.
Hey, don't talk about my favorite YouTube channel like that.
They take a very staunch position on raising the minimum wage for the aforementioned points I mentioned earlier. The biggest funder of their YouTube channel is funded by a supermassive fracking corporation owned by Dan and Ferris Wilkes, 2 of the richest men in the United States.
Oh, well, what about inflation? If the minimum wage surpasses the national income of the nation, that could lead to economic collapse.
In 1968, the minimum wage was $1.60. Sounds pretty awful, right? Well, adjusted for inflation, it's $12.18. This might sound nice to people living in poverty, also known as people who have a minimum wage job, but surprise, you're getting cheated on this wage too. Until 1968, the minimum wage kept pace with inflation and another factor, productivity. Inflation ensures that the buying power of the minimum wage is not diminished through time, while productivity is the employee's ability to provide goods and services on a regular basis hourly. This means that an employee's ability to increase work productivity, whether it be by company policy, national legislation, advancements in technology, or just better work ethic, is immediately followed by an increase in wage. This has not happened since 1968. If we were able to keep pace in the 60s, we're definitely able to keep pace now. We are the world's richest nation. Not only that, the world's richest nation in the history of richest nations. Since 1968, the productivity of employees in the United States has pretty much tripled. This means that following the same pattern up until 1968, the minimum wage should be around $24. And you're telling me we can't afford it? Other first world nations have done it, and they don't have a multi-trillion-dollar spending budget. So why can't we? American workers need to realize that they are getting the short end of the stick on everything. They are overworked, underpaid, and have no meaningful employee benefits. And now more than ever is the American economy feeling the pinch of losing one of the driving forces behind it. The coronavirus outbreak showed how broken the system is for workers and how little America cares for them. They are not just cogs in a machine. They are workers with needs that need to be met. These frontline workers are the same people you say have entry-level jobs and should not be paid anymore. There is no excuse for not raising the minimum wage, besides big business owners not being able to own 4 mansions in each state. We need a rise in the minimum wage, for the sake of American integrity, society, and the general well-being of the public. Let's be the great nation we're supposed to be. We sent a man to the moon because we could. Now, we need to give our workers more of what they earned. The most patriotic act you can do as an American is recognize its flaws and try your best to make them better.